And we'll get to that, Martin. We'll get to that. We can't wait for it. It's going to be live on talkSPORT, of course. The Saudi-backed takeover of Newcastle United, Martin, completed. This dominated our show yesterday, along with Fury Wilder. But the takeover, and we saw the scenes. Did you see the scenes last night? Sky Sports News, on Sky News. Absolutely. It was everywhere. They came from everywhere, and they're celebrating as if they'd won the Premier League. It's a bit to go yet. Amanda Savory is saying, oh, hang on, maybe 5 to 10 years for that. Simon, let me ask you this. A club has changed hands. You've been in the situation yourself. How is Mike Ashley actually feeling, do you think, this morning? Can you second guess it for us?
I suspect probably relieved, and 250 to 300 million pound richer, and looking forward rather than back. You know, this has not been a happy 14 years any which way you look at it, from the images that we've seen of him as a younger chairman standing in the terraces in Newcastle shirts, where that was questioned as something that you wanted someone to be doing if they owned your club, through to the endless bombardment, some of it justified, some not, about the style and the manner of his ownership. So for me, it's almost like looking back and going, well, okay, Mike Ashley had a way of running that football club. The worst crime that he did to Newcastle fans was have a model to make the football club sustainable and have an ambition to stay in the Premier League. That's the worst crime. They'll say he took away the spirit of the club, he took away the ambition, he took away the heart and soul. And that's true too, because he didn't give them what they wanted, which is an ambitious football club, which every fan's entitled to.
Right.
So Mike, I don't think, you can't look at Mike's time and say, well, this must have been an enjoyable experience for you. You must have felt like you won something.
Because it wasn't.
Well, it must have been bloody awful.
Well, he's saying this morning, I accept that during my time at Newcastle, we have not achieved the club's full potential on the field. He's right about that. But I do believe he says that away from the pitch, we got many things right. What did he get right?
Well, he will point to the fact that the sustainability of the football club didn't require him to prop it up. He'll point to, go look at Derby and look at what Mel Morris did over there. Go look at other football clubs that have been, and the Newcastle fans will say, we don't want to look at other football clubs. We want to look at the image that you told us and the image that you sold us. Yeah. You said you wouldn't leave this football club until you won something, but you didn't put the resource behind it. You know, the same accusation gets levied at David Gold and David Sullivan. You talk about these things, you own these football clubs, and what goes with it, unfortunately, if you're an owner, is an endless need to keep on financing it. Mike didn't want to do it, and what he did do was make it sustainable. And sustainability isn't what people are interested in. They're interested in lights on, ambition and passion, and they didn't get it from the owner.
Two relegations in that period.
Totally accepted.
I think I was looking at you look at the ambition. I think there were 14 seasons or 13 seasons when they never made it past the fourth round of the FA Cup, which is a club in the sort of mid 90s. They were in 2 FA Cup finals. Yeah, they were second on 2 occasions, 95, 96. So it's about getting back to that. But I think now it's an amazing deal for the fans at Newcastle. Now it's a hotbed of football. It's really caught the imagination. Of course, they want to buy into the Premier League, and now it's a question. I don't think it's a question of when or if. It's like, well, it's more a question of when rather than if, because if we look at it, you could say 10 years from now, would you argue that they could be champions in the Premier League? Yeah. When you think about wealth, when it's linked to quality?
Well, depends how much control is going to be exerted over how they spend that money. At the end of the day, they will have a run for 3 years because of the profitability of Newcastle United, irrespective of COVID, where financial fair play isn't going to trouble them because they've been left in a profitable position. They're not carrying any losses. So they can afford to go out and if they wanted to, I'm not suggesting they will, they could afford to go out next summer and spend 500 million quid bang on players, and they wouldn't be in any jeopardy of breaching financial fair play.
500.
They could spend $1 billion if they wanted to in the first season, because the depreciation on that would be 250 million quid. They've got gains. They've got 3 years before any financial fair play regulation comes in that can sanction them for breaching the losses. That
so they could spend $1 billion.
They could go and spend what they wanted to.
They could spend $1 billion in deals.
They can spend what they want. Right. They haven't got losses. They in the Premier League, you're allowed to carry 105 million worth of losses over 3 years. Newcastle have been profitable for as long as Mike Ashley can remember. Yeah. So they're carrying in gains. They won't find themselves in a loss position for some time. And if they go and buy, say, 500 million pounds worth of players, those players will depreciate over the contract term at, say, 100 million a year. If they build that club and their revenues go up at the same time, and they've also got gains, they've got a real run at spending money if they want to.
The big question is Steve Bruce going to be there to see this all happen? Now, he says this morning in the Telegraph, I didn't know anything about this until news of it broke yesterday. He says, I took training yesterday. It was a very strange atmosphere. It was very quiet, but we're all waiting now to see what happens. I'll wait like everybody else. You spoken to him?
No. Because I know the outcome. You know the outcome. Anybody with half a brain knows the outcome.
What's the outcome?
Steve Bruce won't be the manager of Newcastle. That's a given.
When? Next weekend?
Well, I think it will be when they can find a replacement. Ultimately,
They've probably found one, haven't they?
Well, not necessarily.
Well, they won't let the grass grow.
Well, not necessarily, because with the greatest respect in the world, Newcastle United isn't a draw right now. They're a draw because people's perception will be they've got lots of money. That will take time to land in the marketplace. It will take time to attract players. It will take time to attract... Who are they going to buy in player terms? Who are they going to get in January? Because all they're going to do is get B-rated players in January, because those players that are potentially available to them are already signed to big clubs. If you're a big club player, is Griezmann going to leave Barcelona to join Newcastle right now just because Newcastle's owners are wealthy?
True.
It'll take some time.
Do you think they've discussed a manager already?
Well, they bloody well should have done.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not...
So it's a given that Steve's going to go?
I'll be amazed if Steve Bruce is the manager at the turn of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if he's still in there for a period of time, does a job to hold the fort together so that they can make their own decisions. But new brooms always sweep clean. Steve Bruce is not their man. He's not the fans' man. They're coming into a group of fans that are absolutely 100% behind the owners. Steve Bruce, they're not behind.
They're winless. They've lost 7 games in, are we? They haven't won a game. So, I mean, regardless of a new people coming in, his job is in a perilous position anyway.
Yeah.
So when you see what's coming, then I suppose the writing's on the wall.
Who's coming? Who do you think they'll go for, Simon? What kind of profile fits what the Saudis would be looking at? What Amanda Staveley's thinking about?
Who's available
the Reuben
as well.
brothers? What are they thinking? Are they talking about Steven Gerrard? Are they talking about Frank Lampard?
Conte's been talked about.
What are they talking about?
But look at the project and look at what you got. The most recent blueprint is Manchester City. Manchester City came out of the gate in 2008, probably a little bit earlier, with Tioan Archer as the owner of the Thai guy that came in before Sheikh Mansour. They started with Sven-Goran Eriksson, they started with Mark Hughes, and then they started to ramp the narrative up and moved into Mancini territory that was an elite manager, and up and onward from there. The battle that Newcastle will have to have is, initially, it's going to take a period of time between the enormous wealth that they've got behind them and the desire for people to come and play for Newcastle. And they're going to have to pay premiums for people, because ultimately, whether people like it or not, when Chelsea landed and Chelsea's landscape was changed, they always had London as a backdrop. Whether people agree with that or not, foreign players see London, they see Manchester, they don't see Newcastle yet.
It's a good point.
Chelsea, though, in the season before they won, with all that wealth came in, they were second, weren't they, in the Premier League? So that was, you could say, already they were in a financial perilous position when Abramovich came in and rescued them. So it wasn't much of a step for them to then go on and win it just a couple of years after Abramovich came in. This is a bit different. This is massive regeneration of a football club here, of an area.
Yeah.
There's a massive amount of money that's going to be spent in, which is fantastic.
It's no different to Man City. It's no different to Man City. Man City, don't forget, Man City were in League One. And they got built up by David Bernstein through the gears, got back into the Premier League with Kevin Keegan being put as part of the project. Yeah. And then they had this enormous wealth come behind it.
But when you look at the squad, intended this morning to the people in the northeast, Martin, we're going to head to a break in a second, but I'll put this out here. In the northeast, does that help? And again, I don't mean to sound disrespectful, but does geography really put them at a disadvantage compared to London and even the Manchester clubs? Top players, will they go up there? In the past, we know they pull back going up to the northeast. Does that come into play now? We'll look at that next.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.